The narcissistically abusive relationship is a kind of alternative reality that we enter into. If you find yourself feeling very obsessed with the relationship when you're trying to end it or when it's already ended, and you find yourself flooded with feelings of guilt, you need to remember that this isn't real. You're still trapped inside of the simulated reality, the matrix that is the creation of the narcissist that you entered into when you engaged in the covert contract with them. You are now trapped inside of a shared fantasy. And within that shared fantasy space between you and the narcissist, there's a kind of a third entity, a third thing. There's you, the other person, and then there's this other thing. When we're looking to dissolve the relationship, when we're looking to escape from the relationship, don't think of it as you as one object, breaking up with the narcissistic abuser as the second object. They're, quite frankly, almost completely irrelevant. It is the third thing that you need to concern yourself with. All of the obsession, all of the guilt, all of the anxiety, all of the sense of despair that you're feeling doesn't come from them. Your brain, when you're experiencing these emotions, will say, where's this bad feeling coming from? Oh, it's coming from them. And in that way, you're firing energy inside of your own subjective reality at that person, and you're lending them significance. In effect, you are fetishizing that person by imbuing them with powers that they really do not have. It's not your fault. It's just that the parts of our brain that process stress and that process anxiety and trauma don't know how to map this situation properly. I'll say it again. The individual that you're focused on is almost totally irrelevant. It is the third thing that the two of you together have created that you need to seek to dissolve. You're not breaking up with your partner. That's unpleasant and painful and sad when we end a relationship for whatever reason under normal circumstances. The two of you together, willingly or unwillingly, consciously or unconsciously, have created a toxic shared fantasy. This is the third entity. And you're now trapped inside of that alternate reality and you're fighting to escape. But you will not escape by fetishizing that person. To fetishize something means to imbue an object or an individual with a power that they do not have. It's almost a magical process. So you're imbuing them in a certain sense with magical powers. Your perceptions will become skewed. You'll start thinking they can read your thoughts, or that they're inside of your mobile phone reading your texts, and that they have powers and access to people that they simply do not have. These are all aspects of this third element, the shared fantasy space. The only thing you need to do is to dissolve the shared fantasy. So why do we feel the obsession? The obsession is because of the pain and the confusion that seems to be coming from them, but is not from them. That's covered. Why do we feel so much guilt? Why is it that when I'm working with clients, the predominant thing that takes them back to the narcissistically abusive relationship or causes them to not be able to leave the narcissistically abusive relationship are overwhelming feelings of guilt that can become shame? Because inside of the shared fantasy space, inside of the simulated reality, the matrix that you've entered into, you have unconsciously agreed to something that makes it very, very difficult for you to leave. Two things you've agreed to that make it difficult to leave. One is you've agreed to take on the role of parent to the narcissistic, wounded, and abandoned child. You have been coerced, manipulated, provoked into taking on the role of savior. You now are trying to be the savior to that small innocent child that is locked in there. And so when you try to leave, you will experience the guilt and shame of a mother or a father abandoning their child. Number two, you will experience the distress of having been abandoned as a child. So within this narcissistic fantasy shared space, you have also taken them on as a mother or father figure. You now are addicted to seeing yourself through their eyes, and they see you with the eyes of an all-loving, non-judgmental, unconditional loving regard mother or father. But it's not real. They only appear to see you this way, and you only appear to see them that way. That's why there's so much guilt. I myself have lived the experience in 2 narcissistically abusive relationships where what kept me going back to somebody who I knew objectively by any standard was absolutely emotionally abusive and was exploiting me was the tremendous feeling of guilt. When I would leave her, in both cases, I would become overwhelmed with catastrophizing thoughts of her ruining her life, of her destroying herself, of her even committing suicide, or of ending up homeless. Really dramatic, really unlikely, very film quality level fantasies and fears that picked up, that gained pace, that created enormous anxiety in me, where I felt like the only thing I could do to stop the pain of this guilt, this shame, and this anxiety was to simply get back with that person. And then when I got back with them, the guilt and the shame would abate for a period of time, and then they would get right back to abusing me after the honeymoon period, which could be 2 hours, 2 days, maybe I'd get 4 days at the outside of it, and then they go right back to abusing me again as they did before. How do we dissolve this fantasy space? I have a course for you. It's called Unplugged from the Matrix of Narcissistic Abuse. It's available from richardgrannon.com. If you don't want to get the course, or you'd like to start working through this with your therapist or counselor in your own time, start considering the relationship not as a normal relationship, but as a trauma-bonded shared fantasy of exploitation in which you've literally gone into a simulated reality. Try to figure out some of the coordinates of that shared fantasy, of that simulated reality space between you and the narcissistic abuser. What is your role? What is your objective? What is their role? What is their objective? When we talk about a shared fantasy, you need to think about the shared goals that you said you had. You need to think about the shared values. What is the story of the relationship that you have with that person? And then you need to, brick by brick, piece by piece, take that story apart. All of the good elements and all of the bad elements. All of the good elements of the story, all of the things that you were receiving or that you would receive in the future, you now need to skillfully and in all vulnerability and courage grieve that you will never get those things with that person. I highly recommend doing this with a therapist or a counselor, not doing it on your own. And then once you've gone through that process, move to the good elements of this relationship that were not real with this person, but that could be real in the future. How can I cause them to be? Are they realistic? Are they healthy? Are there things that I should want in a future relationship? How do I make it more likely to happen? Remember, it's not what your brain is telling you. It's not you versus them. Your obsessive thoughts about this person, the power in this dynamic does not come from them. I'll say it again. They're almost irrelevant. And the reason I can say this is because they're completely replaceable. Narcissists function as a kind of a hive mind, artificial intelligence. One is as good as the other. They're only going to say the same things that the other one would say, given exactly the same context and the same objectives. That's what makes them completely predictable. That's why when you talk to other victims of narcissistic abuse on forums and on social media, you're all basically sharing very, very similar stories. Even the turns of phrase they use can sometimes be almost identical. It's like a copy-paste machine. It copies and pastes, copies and pastes. That means that person doesn't have power and control over you, but the situation does. And this third entity, the shared fantasy, it requires a degree of consent. So if you keep feeding your libidinous life force energy, your emotional energy into this shared fantasy, hoping that you're going to get back out of it what you thought you were going to get in the beginning, that caused you to make this investment with time, with love, with money, with sex, with your life, if you can let go of that, if you can say, okay, I'm never going to get back what I thought I was going to get back. This is a completely failed investment. I should never have done this. I have failed here in all due humility and with all due courage. Then you can start to talk about moving on and getting on with the rest of your life. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for your attention. And I look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Hello folks, just to let you know, we now have a new course out. It's finally finished. It's called Unplug from the Matrix of Narcissistic Abuse, and it's available from richardgrannon.com. Just hit this link right here and you can go get it.